Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the digital asset investor. Today has not worked in my favor at all. I have been, and I've got a Dr. Pepper here beside me because I've got a drink. I've been talking so much. This will be the third time that I've started to record this video. I recorded this video in one full time, and I accidentally deleted it. I've spent the last hour trying to figure out how to recover a deleted file, and my computer would not recover the file. So here we go. I'm going to do it better for you this time. First, what you're looking at is the bull that's in the financial district of Wall Street. If you've never been there, this huge bull is right there in the financial district. I put this on here for a couple of reasons. One, that what I'm going to talk to you today about is really the Wall Street. This video is representative of what I think is going to happen with Wall Street. They're going to create the bull run that's coming. It's going to be bigger than anything that we've seen in XRP. But I have not been back to Wall Street since I was up there for my training as a financial advisor, and that's years ago. But I wanted to tell you a story, and I'm going to go ahead and tell again the story about my training for those of you that have not heard this story, because it's a true story. When I had started working on Wall Street, again, it was with one of the top three firms, investment bank / brokerage firms. And what they did is they made you, wherever you were in the world in your training, you had to pass the Series 7 and the Series 31. And they kept you on for a month or two in a training program to study for the Series 7 and the Series 31. And then you went and took the test. And if you passed the test, you came back to work the next day. If you failed, you were fired. You just don't even come back. And so that's pretty good incentive to pass a test. But anyway, after you passed, you then went they flew you to New York City at their expense, and you would train in the World Trade Centers, because this particular firm was on one of the higher floors. I remember you would go up an elevator, and then you'd get off that elevator and then go up another elevator. They were, I believe, as I recall, they were right underneath where the planes hit. Well, when I was there, they put us up in a hotel. We would every morning at 6 in the morning, they would have a bus pick us up, and the bus would take us down to the financial district all the way to the trade center. We'd get off the bus and we'd go up to the headquarters. And that was in Tower 2, which was the one that had the antenna on the top of it. That's not an easy thing for me to forget, as you'll hear in this story. Once we were up there, we would train all day until 6 p.m. and then the buses would come back and they would pick us up. But during the day, we would be able to go down and eat lunch on the street or whatever we wanted to do. Well, to make a long story short, I was in training there for 3 weeks, from 6 in the morning till 6 at night. We left after that 3 weeks on a Friday. We flew out to go home, and I flew back to my home, and then it was Tuesday that those terrorists hit the trade centers. It was Tuesday, and I do tend, sometimes I get emotional when I talk about this, but on Tuesday, which was basically just a couple of days after we left, after having been there for 3 weeks, those planes hit the buildings. And I was standing in this brokerage firm. I was cold calling that morning. I mean, that's what they had you do when you started. And I remember we had TV screens on the computer desktops. And I remember a guy saying, did y'all see what just happened? And I looked at the TV and I saw the smoke coming from that first tower. And one thing I will never forget one of the guys I knew, he was looking at the screen, and at that second I was not looking at the screen, and then the second plane hit, and I remember him turning to me and saying, "This is World War III." That's what stuck out in my mind. I never will forget that. There's another part of this story that I want to tell you, because this is I guess certain things in life make quite the impression on you. When I was a kid, my grandfather, all he ever talked about was World War II and Hitler. That's all he did, read books on it and talked about it all the time. And maybe that's why I'm into this XRP thing now. Maybe in some way I think it all ties in. But for me, the thing I can't get out of my head, and I see this every single year. I don't know, those of you may not have seen this, but every year on the anniversary of 9/11, they show it's a show that's about an hour and a half about 9/11, and it's called something like 100 and something minutes, however long it was from the time it happened until the time that the towers fell. It's a great show because they take camera footage from all kinds of different people who happen to have cameras that morning, and they put it all together, and so they take you through that morning from the time the sun comes up, basically all the way until it all happened. Well, when I was there in training, at lunchtime we would go down to the ground level, and there was a sandwich shop across the street. And in that sandwich shop, it was clear glass door and glass all the way around it, so you could see everybody inside the sandwich shop standing in line to get their sandwiches. And I would go there with my friends, and we would go over there, and I remember I would get a Reuben. They had a really good Reuben sandwich, and I would go there every day. Well, I watched that program every year. And when you were there and you see that program, every year there was someone inside of that sandwich restaurant, and they're looking out of the sandwich restaurant. And I don't know if you remember, but when those trade centers went down, I'm still thirsty. But when those trade centers went down, there was a lot of smoke and a lot of dust and people couldn't even see in front of them. But as those trade centers went down, there's a scene in that show that I watch every year where someone is standing inside of that sandwich shop, and you can see the dust and the smoke. You can see it move in front of that glass where I was standing to order that Reuben sandwich. And then all of a sudden it's all dark. It's a very spooky thing. And it made quite an impression on me and a lot of people. So anyway, I tell you that story to tell you that this is about Wall Street. And when I think of Wall Street, I associate it partially with that, and partially really with the financial crisis. Those have been two really huge things in my life. And I'll get into the financial crisis more in detail in terms of how it affected me one day. But I wanted to relay that to you just so you kind of know where I'm coming from. But here's what I want to talk to you. I'm going to get this back to XRP, which is what we're all here about. We've talked a lot about, I've talked a lot about how one of the biggest reasons I'm so into this is that we know that Goldman and all of Wall Street is coming. They're setting up the infrastructure to this. But I've mainly talked in terms of the fact that they're coming, and we've talked about all of the regulatory issues going on, whether things are going to be a security and whether they're not. and we've talked about a lot of the regulatory uncertainty and those type of things. Well, if you take a step back and you really look at this, what's really going on is all of the pillars of what's going to be a monster financial juggernaut. Is the pillars are just being put in place, and that includes everything. It includes it includes a lot of these pompous politicians being able to have their little committee meetings and puff out their chest and let everybody know that they're somebody, even though most of them don't even know what they're talking about. I watched some of those hearings yesterday, and a lot of those guys, they just need to go ahead and retire. They don't even, they have no idea what a cryptocurrency is. They especially don't know what XRP is or what XRP is going to do and is doing. But these are a lot of the things that it's just a part of life. You have to go through some of these things, and you have to let some of these people take their credit that they're dying to have and get their badge that says they're important. You have to go through a lot of these steps to get the infrastructure in place so that everybody can be patted on the head and told, okay, the water's safe to come in now. And guess who is going to be the beneficiaries of having taken a risk and knowing in our guts that we were right and that this is a world-changing event that's about to happen, because we put our big boy pants on, as I've told you in the past, and we did what we knew was the right thing to do, which was invest in XRP, the greatest digital asset ever created. So, but I wanted to tell you today, as a financial advisor, I wanted to kind of show you, and not just a financial advisor, but as an investor over the last 20 years, I learned, my father taught me growing up the way to invest the way Warren Buffett invests as a value investor. And I used to, he would take things like, if you're not familiar, these are some of the things that people that are investment advisors or people who are just investors like you and me that have an E-Trade account, a lot of times when you're buying stocks, use a lot of these numbers that are put out on these companies, and then we go to places like Yahoo Finance. I pulled up Facebook just to give you an example of how the financial world lays out all of this data, and they do it for one specific purpose. They do it to give information to investors to invest, but more importantly, they do it and they lay out all this information so that it's easier for them to sell the product to you, whether you're a retail investor or an institutional investor. This is just like organizing your files at home. You keep everything organized so that you can really know what you have and what you're looking at. Well, they organize all of this information on all of these investment vehicles, whether it's Facebook or if it's a mutual fund or it's an ETF or it's a bond. They put the information together for you, and then the job of the financial advisors is to present that for you and be able to explain anything of this that you don't understand. And so I just wanted to go through this with you briefly, just so that we can you can get you a good visual of it's already happening. This is already the formation, and the pillars are already being put in place to build the largest financial juggernaut that we've ever seen. And I'm going to prove it. This is Facebook's page on Yahoo Finance. This is the summary of some of their financials, and you'll see they give you charts. They have a chart section so that you can look at the charts, and if you're a chartist, you can study the charts. If you're a chartist, of course, you'd have more sophisticated software. They show conversations here. These are just people online that are talking about this and talking about the latest on Facebook. They show different statistics. They show you like the 52-week change or the 52-week high. You'll have the trailing PE, the price to book. All of these things are factored in, the beta. all of these different numbers there, and these are all things that were on the Series 7 where we had to learn these so that we could look at stocks and judge whether or not they were a good buy. They give the profile of these companies on here, the address and then the major executives, the location, and all of that. They even put the financial statements of these companies on here. Then they put the options change, and this is free information on Yahoo Finance. Then they put who some of the larger holders of the stocks are. Vanguard Group, BlackRock, we know that name this week. Then they put historical data, and then they put analysis, okay? And this here they compile the various analysts that cover Facebook. They compile a lot of the data here, and but I wanted to go through all this with you. This is on a stock, but I wanted to go through that with you because guess what? Guess who's doing the same thing for cryptocurrencies? You are now looking at the same thing as that Facebook thing that I just showed you, the Facebook summary. You're looking at the same thing for Ripple. So I know how these Wall Street people think like the back of my hand, and I'm telling you, this right here, that they're formulating the exact type of formulas so that they can present the information to the investor, and they're categorizing everything the same way that they do with stocks. Now, I'm not saying that these are going to be like stocks. They're not. It's going to be different. But it's important for you to realize that they are already creating their marketing material. They're already creating anything that they can find that's in line with stocks because they see this as such a similar thing in terms of how to sell it. They're doing historical data, the same type of thing. So, but here's where the separation occurs. They're like right now they've got some of the same type things, 52-week range for Ripple, the open, the close. They've found some of the things that are the same, and they're including those for people to be able to look at and study to decide whether to invest. Well, I want to take you back to something I've shown you before. In the past, I showed you this Crescent. This is the Crescent crypto hedge fund. This is the hedge fund that was formed by a bunch of guys that left Goldman Sachs, and I've talked to you about this before. Well, they show you in their hedge fund the way that they are weighting when you invest with their hedge fund, they show you how they're weighting the different crypto assets or digital assets. Well, what's important is, and this is kind of the point I wanted to get across to you, is in order to create all of these vehicles for investment that they're going to create and to sell it to the investor, they're having to categorize everything just the way you would categorize stocks as technology stocks or the different types of, or value stock, different types of stocks. Well, they're categorizing these digital assets. Bitcoin, because it has no use case, as I've told you before, they're calling a store of value. The truth of the matter is you could create a digital asset today and you could say that this is a store of value, and it would probably be a better technology than Bitcoin. But guess what Bitcoin has that no other cryptocurrency will ever have? And the only reason that Bitcoin will exist beyond now, that is they have one of the greatest things you can have, which is called first mover advantage. Without first mover advantage, I would bet you anything Bitcoin would no longer even exist. But I think Bitcoin is going to exist, and I agree with, I believe it was Charlie Lee that says you should own one Bitcoin. I believe you should own one Bitcoin because I think that every ETF, every hedge fund, every mutual fund, I think they're all going to have a large percentage of what they hold in Bitcoin. I'll give them another reason. Bitcoin has a very low amount of Bitcoin. It's 21 million that will ever be created. And that's another reason is the deflationary aspect of it. Bitcoin will be one of the winners in the thing. And so I myself will probably own one Bitcoin and just keep that one Bitcoin. Ripple is going to go up thousands of times more than Bitcoin, in my opinion, because Ripple has everything. It's got the store of value. It's got the use case. It's going to be it's going to have a network like the Ethereum network, but better. It's got everything. But I just wanted you to see that they're categorizing these things, and the reason that's important is imagine a day. And first, let's look at the categories real quick. Store of value. They're calling Ethereum a platform token. They're calling XRP value transfer or utility token would be another way. They're calling Tron an entertainment token. They're calling OMG a payments. And here's one that's an app development. And then this is an anonymity token. It's hard getting that word out. And so they're classifying all of these. Okay. Well, the next step is you're going to start seeing tabs pop up here with categories that apply to digital assets, which give the potential buyers of these other digital assets that sell them further on it. In Ripple's case, they may have a utility section, and they may have statistics and numbers that break down who's currently using the XRP token. They may have a list. It may say Bank of America is now has 1 billion a day flowing through this digital asset. They may categorize things like that, but that's where this is going. You're going to see this information, and it's going to be presented in such a way so that investors, retail and utility, can actually not utility, retail and institutional can go and look at and study the different information. But digital assets will have something that I've said before. These stocks will never have, which is utility. These stocks, it will always be speculation, the money that flows into these. But when investors and future investors especially go and look at these digital assets, they will be looking at it through a speculation lens. But they will also have tabs here that show them how these tokens are being used, and it will make their imaginations run wild, just like ours have, about how much this investment can go up in value. What if even more people start to use this token? What could this price be? And they will invest behind us. Keep that in mind. They will be behind us because we were here first. And feel good about that. You will feel much better about it as time goes on. But this is where all of this is going to go, and this is kind of what I was thinking from the beginning of this thing, that this would all end up at. 4 years ago, if I described to you what the pie in the sky would be, what the ultimate would be, I would have told you that if Wall Street came in and saw this for what I saw it and began to create categories of digital assets and started treating them the same way, in essence, that they treat stocks, so that they could present that material to investors. This is the exact way I would have wanted this to unfold. And it is unfolding that way, and that's why I know that we are all fixing to make some big money. So the last part of this puzzle I've mentioned before too, but I'll mention it again, and that is the ratings agencies. The ratings agencies are coming, okay? This one is Morningstar Japan was the first, and this was announced a little while back. But Morningstar Japan announced that they were going to start rating cryptocurrencies and ICOs, and this was back in October 2017. But you're going to see S&P, you're going to see Moody's. All of these people follow the money, just like Wall Street. The Goldman Sachs boys are jumping ship from Goldman Sachs because they know where the money's going to be. The Goldman Sachs guy I was talking about yesterday, the ex-CEO blank fund that was put out to pasture, because no CEO is above the trillions that Goldman Sachs stands to make. So they got a crypto-friendly CEO now, and the rest of the industry will do the same thing. Just the same, ask S&P and Moody's how they handled things back in the financial crisis. They were being paid, in essence, to rate the mortgage bonds. I've talked about this before. They were being paid to rate them good, and so they did. they will be paid to get into the crypto industry, and they will take the money. But in my opinion, in terms of crypto, if they're rating the cryptos or the digital assets with actual use cases, they'll be doing the world a favor when they give them good ratings. Whereas in the financial crisis, they were giving good ratings to awful things that people shouldn't have been invested in. Well, I hope you all have enjoyed this. Now, I wanted to tell you, when I recorded this video the first time, I was going to show you that I sent my first email to Ripple to ask for the Brad Garlinghouse interview. I've already sent it because I sent it in the previous video that I lost. So that is going to, we'll see what happens. I sent it to their sales department because I know that salespeople always answer phone calls and always return emails because they're wanting to sell. I am the digital asset investor. I am not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. I need you guys to subscribe and hit the like button as much as you can. I got my father to buy some Nano S's today. So I'm not, I've bought Nano S. I've had my father buy Nano S. So it's not something I'm just talking about trying to sell you something. This is for real. The Ledger wallet is the safest way to hold your digital assets. Go into the link in my description and go get one. Once you get your digital assets off of these exchanges, you will finally be able to sleep well. I slept well. I literally went through years of telling my wife, well, if we don't lose them to a hacker, we might make a lot of money in Ripple. And so don't be that guy. I certainly know what that feels like. So, and also you can get your crypto merchandise in the description of my videos too. You can get 10% off and it's worldwide free shipping. Well, thank y'all for listening, and I am not going to lose this video.